everyone, it's Gojira Prime here with a little video, and today we are taking a look at the Transformers Age of the Primes Aerialbots. So I'm going to go through each of the figures in their robot mode first of all, then I'll do the vehicle modes, and then I will do Superion. So first off, if you're not familiar with the G1 Aerialbots, sorry, we have Silverbolt, who transforms into a Concorde passenger jet, and he is the leader of the group. We have Fireflight, who is an F4 Phantom. We have Air Raid, who is an F-15 fighter. We have, I believe, Skydive. Yeah, Skydive, who is an F-16. And then we have Slingshot here, who transforms into a Harrier jump jet. Now, I have to admit, the Aerialbots do hold a bit of a special place for me because they are my favorite of the Transformers Autobot combiner teams out of all the ones that we've had. And I was really looking forward to getting this lot added to my collection. So what we'll do is then we'll start off, I'll just move these out the way a little bit, and we'll start off with Silverbolt. Now, Silverbolt is the largest of the Aerialbot figures. He forms the central torso of Superion, and he just comes with this little gun accessory. He does also come with all the framework pieces needed to make Superion, but they only really turn to the arms and the legs and the front of the torso section, and they then form this weird, massive plastic lump which you can attach to him when he's in plane mode. But I'm not going to go through that because it's not really relevant much to the central bot per se. So, as you can see, looks very much like the original G1 Superion from the show. He does have a bit of a backpack here, but that's not really a problem. The wings you can have either spread out like that, or if you're like me, I just tend to have them completely folded up in the back like that. The head sculpt is on a ball joint and can do a full 360 and go up and down a little bit too. The arms at the shoulders have full rotation if you have the wings pointed back. He does also have movement at the elbow. The hands will not swivel because they're on a hinge there for the transformation process, but they're just a molded solid piece of black plastic anyway to look like a hand. The legs will, if you lift the front skirts up, go all the way forward. They will go some way back, but obviously they're stopped because of the backpack section here. There is a bend at the knee, and there is a little foot articulation there as well, so you can get him into some decent poses. But yeah, aside from that, a lot of nice molded detail and a very good modern representation of G1 Silverbolt. Now, just to do a bit of a size comparison here with this guy straight off the bat, if I just take my camera and move it a little bit, here is the last G1 Silverbolt we had a toy of, which was not a combiner, but it's the Transformers Universe version of the character. And as you can see, there is a massive size difference in these figures. This one has more engineering to it, but this one is a far larger figure. And this was considered a Voyager class back in the day. So was it an Ultra class? I'm not too sure. But anyway, it's a very big, much bigger figure, much simpler transformation process, not as much engineering as this one. But it would be worth showing them. Sorry, just take up there. I thought it'd be worth showing them just as a comparison at this stage. So we'll take the Superions out of the way. Sorry, Silverbolts out of the way. And then we'll do Slingshot, who is the Harrier jump jet. Slingshot comes with 2 weapons accessories, which you can have either attached to the side of his hands or in his hands. Now, it has to be said that both he and Fireflight have pretty much the same design. If I just hold them both up here, you can see they're literally aside from a couple of minor sculpt details, they are virtually the same. And it's also the same in plane mode as well. The only thing that really puts them apart is the canopy sections here at the back. But I'll run through Fireflight in just a minute. So that's Slingshot. You got the standard head sculpt there for Slingshot for G1. Again, it's on a ball joint, so it will go all the way around. The arm is on a ball joint, and that will go all the way around as well. You do have movement at the elbow, and the hands are just molded straight in, so there's no hand articulation in any way, shape, or form. The legs will go all the way forward. They will go all the way back because there's no backpack. And you do also have a bend at the knee, and you also have some foot articulation as well. So he will get in some very good poses. All in all, I think it's a really nice rendition of Slingshots. It's a lot better than the previous Combiner Wars version, to say the least. But, you know, as always, when they're doing Combiner figures like this, there are going to be some sacrifices to a certain degree. And I think those sacrifices were made probably in how the figure goes together to a certain point. But all in all, I'm genuinely very, very pleased with this version of Slingshot. Then we have Air Raid, and I have to admit, I really like the Air Raid design. He's actually probably my favorite of the Aerialbots. Again, comes with 2 weapons accessories that go straight into the hand, and only the hand, but you can clip them into the wings as well when he's in vehicle mode, and I'll show that off at that point. But yeah, I really do like this guy. I like the head sculpt, just the overall design of him with the black and the white. Just knock his gun out. His head, again, ball joint, will go all the way around. You can get some up and down movement to it as well. Arms will go up, but they will not, and you can get a full 360 potentially if you move his wings out the way. But if you keep the wings there like he's supposed to have them, you won't get that full 360, but that's not really a problem for this figure. He does have movement at the elbow. No movement in the hands because they're on this hinge joint to fold them into here for when he does the transformation sequence. But again, they're just molded anyway to hold the guns. So not really a problem there. And I'll just put that one back in there. The legs, all the way forward, all the way back, like so. You do also have movement at the knee. And the foot does have some articulation as well there, as always. So again, you can get him into some very nice poses. So yeah, very nice version of Air Raid. He does have that backpack thing again, but to be honest, this is kind of how he looked in the show, more or less. So I'm not really bothered by that at all. But yeah, all in all, very nice version of Air Raid. Then we have Fireflight, who is the F4 Phantom. Now, like I said before, this is virtually identical to the Slingshot mold. There's only a few molded details. The legs are pretty much exactly the same. You can see some of the differences in the chest piece here, and the head sculpt's obviously different, and the cockpit sections are obviously different as well. But he even has exactly the same weapons as Slingshot, and again, you can put them straight into there as well. So although he is virtually identical to Slingshot, I still think it's a very nice version of the character. And then finally, we have Skydive, who is an F-16. Now, again, he's very, very similar, if not identical, to Air Raid. The wings are different, as you can see here. If I just hold them up properly. So the wings are a little different, molded differently at the ends. And the cockpit section is different as well here. But aside from that, it is virtually the same mold. He does have different fins on the back, obviously, because he's meant to be an F-16. But aside from that, really, they are virtually identical in in most ways. You can see here, the legs at the front here are exactly the same. It's just different paint apps that have been applied. and a different head sculpt as well. But aside from that, the chest section is more or less identical. If I just hold them up, if I just get the arms out of the way a little bit, there we go. So you can see there, he does have a slightly different chest. This bit is more filled out to accommodate the Autobot logo, but the central piece is identical, just a different color. And this cavity section here, again, is virtually the same. The upper arms are virtually the same. The lower arms are, yeah, I'd say they're pretty much the same as well. So aside from the fins, the nose cone, and the head sculpt, and a few other minor details, these figures are also exactly the same. But, you know, that just makes it a bit simpler for the combiner process, really, at the end of the day. So, yeah. Although, you know, 2 different molds for the forearm, for the forelimb, sorry, and then 1 mold for Silverbolt, I have no complaints about these guys. They all look really, really good on the shelf on their own, and they look really, really good in plain mode and the combined mode. So, yeah, all in all, I think they did a really, really good job with all of these figures. They all look really, really nice. They all look very much like their original G1 cartoon selves. So yeah, I have no issues with these in any way, shape, or form. They look nice, they have good articulation, so no problems there. So I'm going to pause the video, and then we are going to go through the vehicle modes. One thing I forgot to do, actually, before I do show you the plain modes of the vehicle, of these guys, is I forgot to do some size comparisons. So just as a couple of quick comparisons here, here is Crasher. So again, standard deluxe size here. Size-wise, really, for this guy, you are going to call him a Voyager-class figure, even though he does come with a lot of the it's the engineering and the extra bits for the combined mode that make him a Command-class figure. But really, this guy is Voyager-class, ultimately, at the end of the day. So that's then with Crasher. And then here we have Ramjet. I just move him there. So you can see that Ramjet, standard Seeker mold from the Earthrise line, is bigger than Air Raid and the same size, more or less, as Superion. So standard deluxe, standard Voyager, but they class this as a Commander because of all the extra bits and pieces that it does come with. Okay, so here we have all the Aerialbots now in their jet modes. And yeah, I have to admit, they all look really, really good in the jet modes. This being a combiner team, obviously sacrifices are made because they've got to be both a robot, a plane, and a limb. And you can see, you know, there is some compromises made with these figures in order to do that. But we'll run through each figure and we'll take a look and we'll compare them to one of the Decepticon Seekers from the Earthrise line, just as a comparison. So first off, we'll start off with the Harrier Jump Jet, which is Slingshot. And yeah, he looks a bit like a Harrier Jump Jet. Some nice molded details. The hand weapons fit into the wings in the 5mm pegs. All the robot bits are more or less covered up. You can still see just the red bits of his chest section there. But aside from that, that's a really good playing mode, in my opinion. Transformation process isn't very difficult with these either, so it's quite good. But yeah, I think he does look like a really good Harrier Jump Jet. So no problems there. Now, just to compare him with the larger Voyager-class Thrust Seeker, you know, I can't really see too many problems that they've... Well, obviously, sacrifices were made in regard to the robot mode for this guy to a certain degree, I think. But all in all, I think the engineering's worked out pretty well. This guy hides all the robot bits very, very well, as does this one in his jet mode as well. So... yeah, no major problems there so far. Then we have the F-15. So I'll just move some of these other ways, gives me a bit more room. Then we have the F-15, which is Air Raid. So again, nice from above. Looks a bit like an F-15 jet. The guns go in the wings, but as you can clearly see straight off the bat, there's a lot of robot kibble here. You do have the arms, which are clearly visible, the head, which is clearly visible here, The feet are here as well, and they act as kind of like stands for the plane. So when you do compare him to the Seeker mold, you can see that they have had to make compromises in order to facilitate this figure's multiple modes. So yeah, it looks great from the top, don't get me wrong. From the side, yeah, okay. And then from the bottom, yeah, not as great. You've got a lot of robot kibble there. Then we have Fireflight, the F4, and like Slingshot before him, again, everything's covered up really, really nicely on this figure. There's virtually no robot kibble. You can just see the head there a little bit, but it folds in nicely out of place. The arms are all folded up nicely as well, so they don't show. So yeah, again, looks really, really good in jet mode, and there's very little robot kibble actually visible on him. Again, the handheld weapons go in the 5mm peg slots. But yeah, I think that's really good. So I think in jet modes, these two look the better compared to Air Raid and Skydive. So I think in jet modes, these do look a lot better, while the other two look better in robot modes, in my opinion, which is a bit strange, but there you go. And then next up we have Skydive, the F-16, and this guy, like I said, because it's more or less the same mold as Air Raid, suffers from exactly the same problems as well. You've got the feet, which are hanging down the bottom here. Robot kibble arms, you can see there. I may have folded up there. Did I? No, I didn't fold up his hands, sorry. So if I fold up his hands, it does look better, somewhat. But again, you can still see the arms here, the head there. And it's the same with this guy as well. You can still see the arms, the chest section, the head section there. I did forget to mention, these two do have some nice engine detailing at the back, but that's about it. Weapons, again, go into the wings. From the top, it looks good. It looks like an F-16. As much as it can look like an F-16, but it does look like an F-16. So, yeah, again, looks okay, but compared to like the Earthrise Seeker mold, I'll move my hand out the way a bit there. Obviously, you can see where some sacrifices had to be made in order to get this thing to do the whole limb combination thing. And then finally, we have Silverbolt. Silverbolt is possibly got the biggest kibble problems of all of them. You flip him upside down, you can see straight off the bat, you can see his legs here, chest section here. The arms have tucked away into the central section of the chest here, but here you have Superion's helmet, which also functions as the landing gear, and the leg struts here, which function as the rear landing gear. Again, from the top, it doesn't look too bad. It looks very much like a Concorde plane, but from the side and from the bottom, not as great. But again, it's going to be a bit problematic with the Aerialbots because in some ways you can hide a lot of the kibble with, say, something like the Combaticons or the Stunticons because of their vehicle modes. With these guys, it's a little more difficult. But again, that's Silverbolt and that's Thrust. So while the Seeker molds hide the robot kibble better at the end of the day, they were only designed to be two things, a robot and a jet. These guys were meant to be jets, robots, and limbs for a larger robot. So, yeah, compromises were made in some ways as to how they look. But ultimately, I think these do look really good in jet and robot mode. Certainly, they look a lot better than their previous incarnation in the Combiner Wars toy line. So, yeah, plane modes, I think, are good. They're not as good as, say, the Siege molds for the Seekers or even the Power Glide mold, which we've had recently. But I still think, because they're combiners, they're jets, they're jets, they're robots, they're limbs, they do a good job at the end of the day. And I have no complaints there. So, yeah, good robot modes, good vehicle modes, But let's get it into the mode that everyone is going to have these guys on the shelf, and that's the combine mode. Okay, so this mass of plastic pieces you see in front of you now is the disassembled Aerialbots and then put into the configurations needed to make Superion. And I thought I would just show this particular part of the process to you. So starting with Slingshot, and the same thing as well for Firefly, you have to split the character in two. So there is a little tiny peg hole here, which if you push in, causes the spring load mechanism to detach the character into two sections, a rear section and a front section. And then what you do is you take the arm for Superion, which is formed from the mass of plastic you get with Silverbolt. You take the front section and you attach it to, in these pegs here and here, and you push them in like so, like that. And then you take the rear section and you put these peg holes into these holes here, and these pegs into these holes here, like so. And there you have one of Superion's arms. And then you just fold the wings down like that. At least that's how I prefer to have them anyway. Same thing for Firefly. Again, you split him in two. He has the exact same pin mechanism here. And they actually have this in all the combiners. The Stunticons, the Combaticons, they all have this mechanism for the arm components. So again, you just match up the peg holes. Fold them down like that. This is how I choose to have it. I mean, you could have it just like that if you wanted to, but I prefer to have it just like that, really. That's my own personal preference. And again, with the top section again, you just match up the holes, squeeze it in, and there you have Superion's arms. Now, once you've got the central torso put together, Air Raid and Skydive will just fit straight into the legs in here. And then they push these panels through here as well at the same time. So if I just do this with Skydive first of all. And what you've got to do is, there are these holes here, which will go on these pegs here. So I've got to try and just match them up. And it should. And there you go. You have, it pushes it through more or less. There we are, like that. And then we'll do the same with Air Raid. And no doubt someone on YouTube or Facebook or whatever will point out that I have probably put these on the wrong feet, but it doesn't matter which one these go on. It's the same with the arms. You can have either plane on either arm at the end of the day. And we'll just put that there. So match up the holes to get this to work. And then just give it a good push. And there you have his hind legs. If I just bring the camera up a bit here. So here you have the chest section. And obviously this is where Silverbolt now comes into the fray. So once you've got Silverbolt transformed into the chest section, this peg piece here needs to go into this hole here. So you've got to just keep the tail section lifted up for the time being. And then you have to get these two holes here onto those two peg pieces there. So we'll just move that forward first. You just line everything up there, give it a push, and oh, don't do what I just did. So put that in there like that. Get the peg hole in there like that. Can't really show it because it'll just fall off again. So that's all in there securely now, more or less. And then what you do is you just put this in here. to get even more so. And that's that all connected up. And then you take these pieces here, slot them straight onto there, and they'll give it a bit of a click when they're in. And there you have the best of the Autobot combiners, at least in my opinion. You have Superion. And I think he looks absolutely fantastic. The head sculpt is very, very nice. Very G1 Superion. I know there are versions of Superion in the comics or in the cartoon where he doesn't have the faceplate, but I prefer him with the faceplate. So that's him with the faceplate there. You got nice molded details from all the other figures in there as well. So yeah, he looks really, really good. He does come with a weapon accessory, which is this large cannon, which he can hold in his hand like so if you want. And that works like that. Now, articulation-wise, with the previous Combiner Wars figures, the articulation on the vehicle, on the Combiner modes, if I'm brutally honest, was goddamn awful. They were very, very flimsy, and if you weren't careful, they were just going to topple over quite a bit. With these new Combiners, with the Menasor, the Bruticus, and the Superion, the articulation on these combined modes is so much better. In fact, there are no sacrifices made for the articulation in any way, shape, or form. The head sculpt for Superion is on a ball joint. It will spin round. It will go up and down. The arm is on a ratchet joint. It'll do a full 360. You've got movement at the elbow as well. The hands, he's toppling over a little bit because of how much I'm moving him around. The hands will spin a little bit here. There's no articulation in the fingers themselves. They're just molded. But again, I'm not really too fussed about that with this particular figure. He does have torso articulation, so you can spin him round. I forgot to show that with Silverbolt, actually. Didn't check that one. But he's got torso articulation. His legs, let me move his hands out of the way, will go all the way forward. He's got a bend at the knee slightly. The nose cone from the fighter jets does stop it from going too far. But the legs will go all the way back as well. You wouldn't think that this is a combining robot based on, if you didn't know otherwise. It suffers from no articulation problems in any way, shape, or form. Everything works as it's supposed to, and you can get this guy into some really, really good poses at the end of the day. And that's brilliant compared to what we did have previously with the Combiner Wars line. Now, I know some people don't like this frame system because it means upgrading the figure to a command class figure. But if I'm honest, it works so well. I have no real complaints in any way, shape, or form about it, except for the price. Each one of the deluxe figures was £25. All right, that's not a big problem, £25. But Silverbolt himself was closer to £100 because of the extra plastic needed for the frame pieces. But this frame system that they have, it works brilliantly. I have no issues with it in any way, shape, or form. Right, so let's do some size comparisons. Okay, so size comparison-wise, here we are with a few different figures. Here he is with Age of the Prime's Star Convoy, and he's not as big as Star Convoy, but he is damn close to that size. So he's a really big figure compared to a new scale Titan class figure. Here he is with Blitzwing. So he towers above Blitzwing. And here he is with Crusher. And finally, here he is with the old universe rendition of the figure. So, some big size differences, sorry. So ultimately, is Superion, are these Aerialbots worth getting? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. This is probably the best version of Superion mainline figure-wise you are ever going to get. And if you're getting the third-party figures, well, they're going to cost you literally an arm and a leg. But yeah, I do think that this is probably the best mainline version of Superion we are ever going to get. It's the best mainline version of the Aerialbots I've ever seen, at least anyway. And I think it's a set that's definitely worth adding to your collection. Now, obviously, most of these figures are no longer in production, so the only way to get them is on the secondhand market. But you never know, Hasbro may decide to re-release this, and I think Takara has done a box set of these figures where it's all of them combined in one massive box set done out in G1 styling. So if you can get a hold of Superion, I do thoroughly recommend it. It looks great on the shelf with any bots, quite frankly. The transformation sequences are not very difficult to do. The frame system for the combiner mode works perfectly, in my opinion. You lose no articulation and you get fantastic posing ability with this figure. So yeah, if you can get a hold of him, get a hold of him. And if they ever do re-release him, I would definitely recommend getting a hold of him again. But hey, let me know in the comments section, is Superion and the Aerialbots something you went after, or is it something you just completely bypassed? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do let me know in the comments. Please hit like, hit subscribe, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.